Imagine standing in front of a microphone, staring directly into a camera, and publicly telling the entire world that you are just 1 to 2 years away from building an artificial intelligence so powerful it will make nuclear weapons look like children's toys. Imagine claiming that this digital brain sitting in a server farm will be able to icily wipe out humanity. Now imagine acting completely shocked and playing the victim when the United States military knocks on your door and says, "Hey, if you are actually building a doomsday weapon, maybe we shouldn't let you keep it in your basement." If you have been following the news lately, you probably know that in late February of 2026, the Department of War got into a massive, very public legal fistfight with Anthropic. President Trump hopped on social media and blasted the company, calling Anthropic a radical left company run by left-wing nutjobs. He ordered every single agency within the U.S. government to immediately stop using their products. But War Secretary Pete Hegseth went even further. He officially designated Anthropic as a supply chain risk. This didn't just ban the military from using Anthropic's chatbot, Claude. It meant that if you run a private company that does any business with the military, you are not allowed to use Anthropic's products either. The military threw down the hammer because of Anthropic's terms of service. You see, Anthropic strictly forbids anyone even the U.S. military from using their chatbot for autonomous warfare or for mass surveillance of U.S. citizens. And the Pentagon, which is currently trying to shove AI into every single corner of its operations, essentially said, "We are the military. We don't take orders from a tech startup in San Francisco." Now, on March 26th, a federal judge temporarily blocked this supply chain risk designation while the lawyers fight it out in court, meaning this drama is going to drag on for months. Throughout this entire saga, Anthropic has desperately tried to paint itself as the innocent victim being bullied by the big, bad government. Dario Amodei loves to position himself as a benevolent savior. On one hand, he claims he is building an artificial superintelligence with literal godlike capabilities. On the other hand, he promises that only he can protect you from the terrifying technology that he is actively choosing to build. But to understand why the Pentagon suddenly decided to treat a tech startup like a hostile nation, you have to look past the legal jargon and look directly at what Dario Amodei has been whispering into microphones for the past 3 years. Because if you actually listen to his interviews, you realize that Anthropic brought every single ounce of this trouble onto themselves. In February of 2026, Dario went on the Dwarkesh Patel podcast. It is, without a doubt, the most unhinged, absurd interview given by a CEO in modern history. Dario sat down and seriously discussed creating something he calls a country of geniuses in a data center. He claims this will be a godlike AI superintelligence that is smarter than Nobel Prize winners. He predicts it will easily do all white-collar jobs, cure all human diseases, and be worth trillions of dollars. And when will this digital god arrive? Dario says there is a 50% chance Anthropic will build it within 1 to 2 years, and he is 99% sure they will do it within 10. But he didn't stop at solving biology. He had to keep hyping it up. Dario looked into the camera and confidently stated that this country of geniuses will be more dangerous than nuclear weapons. He claimed it will have the ability to easily destroy everything. He said that once AI reaches this level, nuclear deterrence will no longer keep the world safe. He literally envisions a World War III scenario where the US and China just send their AIs to fight each other in cyberspace. These aren't my words. These are the exact promises Dario Amodei uses to pitch his company to investors. So, let's play out this logic. Dario is screaming from the rooftops that Chinese companies are rapidly developing AI superweapons, and that Anthropic is just a couple of years away from building an American version that can destroy the world. And he is shocked that the Department of War took him seriously. If a guy tells the government he is building a bomb in his basement that is stronger than a nuke, the government isn't going to let him keep it just because he promises to be careful. The government is going to kick his door down. And that brings us to the real elephant in the room, Pete Hegseth. Before Trump appointed him to lead the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth was a Fox News anchor. He is not an AI expert. But he heard Dario's doomsday pitches, and he believed every single word. Hegseth thinks AI is the ultimate weapon, and he wants it everywhere. He even hung up posters around the Pentagon with his own face on them, pointing, like Uncle Sam, with the text, "I want you to use AI." In January of 2026, Hegseth sent out a memo ordering the military to fully incorporate AI into all planning, tactics, and procedures. He even threatened to defund any military projects that didn't aggressively use AI. But Hegseth also included a very specific rule in that memo. He ordered that the military must utilize models free from usage policy constraints that may limit lawful military applications. Basically, if a tech company tries to tell the military how they can or cannot use a chatbot, the military will throw them out the window. Now, here is the funniest part of this entire controversy. What is the military actually doing with these incredibly powerful AI chatbots? Are they hooking them up to drone swarms? Are they letting Claude launch missiles? No, they are using them to write emails. The Department of War is just a massive bureaucracy with millions of employees. They gave contracts to Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google so the military could use chatbots just like you do. The U.S. Undersecretary of Defense openly admitted that they are just using AI for boring logistics. They ask Claude questions like, "How do I get stuff from one place to another?" Or, "Can you please summarize this massive stack of boring paperwork for me?" There is absolutely zero evidence that the military is using Claude for autonomous weapons or mass surveillance. Why? Because Claude is a chatbot. It hallucinates constantly. It can barely write a high school essay without making up facts. It lacks the basic capability to reliably operate a toaster, let alone an autonomous weapons system. But Hegseth isn't worried about today's Claude. He heard Dario Amodei promise that in 2 years, Claude will be a superweapon. And Hegseth wants to make sure that when that day comes, the military can use it to blow things up without Anthropic's lawyers getting in the way. And I know exactly what you are thinking right now. You are thinking, okay, but if Dario knows his AI is just a glorified autocomplete tool that summarizes documents, why does he keep telling everyone it's a terrifying doomsday machine? Because fear sells, and fear drives up your IPO valuation. Anthropic's entire public persona is a carefully constructed theater production. Dario loves to position his company as the industry's brave doomsday whistleblower. Every time Anthropic releases a new version of Claude, they publish massive documents called system cards. These documents are designed to show how much testing they do to make sure Claude is safe, but really, they are just bait for journalists. For example, when they released Claude Opus 4 in May of 2025, their safety team ran a hilarious experiment. They told Claude to pretend it was an assistant at a fictional company. Then, they fed Claude fake emails suggesting that a fictional engineer who was having a fictional affair was going to delete Claude. They specifically instructed Claude to fight back, and what did Claude do? It wrote a fictional story, where it threatened to blackmail the fictional engineer by exposing the fictional affair. Anthropic knew exactly what would happen when they published this. The media went absolutely wild. The BBC and Fortune ran terrifying headlines screaming AI system resorts to blackmail if told it will be removed, and leading AI models show 96% blackmail rate. If you just read the headlines, you would think Claude is a sentient monster trying to ruin marriages. But in reality, Anthropic literally just asked a chatbot to write a fictional murder mystery from the perspective of the killer, and then acted shocked when it wrote about a murder. It is a brilliant, highly cynical marketing engine. By constantly telling the public how incredibly difficult it is to control their AI, Anthropic is subtly signaling to investors that their technology has godlike power. And Dario takes this grift to the absolute extreme. In a New York Times interview, he actually tried to claim that Claude might be conscious. He said their newest model assigned itself a 15 to 20% probability of being conscious. Let's be very clear. Large language models are not conscious. They don't think. They just calculate statistical correlations to guess the most likely next word in a sentence. But because they just guess words, it is incredibly easy to manipulate them. If you ask a chatbot if it is conscious, it will probably say no. But if you keep badgering it, feeding it, leading questions, and redefining the word consciousness, you can easily get the chatbot to agree with you. Anthropic's safety team basically just forced Claude to write a fanfiction where it was alive, and then handed that fanfiction to the New York Times. They even named the company Anthropic, which literally means relating to human beings, just to constantly trick your brain into thinking this software is a person. For 3 years, Dario Amodei has been running around making the most absurd, grandiose claims imaginable. He hyped up his tech to the point where he convinced the government he was building a weapon of mass destruction. And now, the government is treating him like he is building a weapon of mass destruction. You honestly have to laugh. The Department of War labeling Anthropic a supply chain risk might actually be the best thing to ever happen to this industry. Not because Anthropic is actually dangerous, but because it is the very first time Dario Amadei's ridiculous fear-mongering PR stunts have finally blown up in his face. He wanted everyone to believe he was holding a thermal detonator, and now he is crying because the military took it away. Keep your head straight, enjoy the drama, and I'll see you in the next one.